What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the latest episode of Can I Kick It FC. This is your host, as always, Elliot Barr. The show is brought to you by 2 Cents FC Network. And joining me today is the head coach of FC Tulsa. I was about to mess that up. Coach Micheal Nsien. How are you doing, sir?
I'm blessed, man. Just got home. I was on the field for a tour day today, so it's cold out. So it's good to be in home now. We're talking, so good to catch up. Thank you for having me.
No problem. So, how are those 2 days going for y'all? I know, like preseason starting up. Definitely season starts fairly soon, right? Like in 18 days, right?
Yeah, I think March 12th is the first game. So we just got back from Tucson. Did a road trip there to play a couple games. So we're at the end of the two-a-day stage now. I think this is our last one. So we're just grinding it out, just trying to get as best prepared mentally and physically for the season.
Or if 2 days are anything like how they were for me when I was playing football, I'm pretty sure they are grueling and coaches are giving instructions that you're like, what is this?
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably a lot for the players to take. I mean, we had video this morning, a session, then they had strength and conditioning, then we came back and did another session. So not just physically, I'm sure mentally, it's a lot to accept. So we're patient, we understand that, and we just want the players to know it's about them and getting them to where they need to be to perform. So we have to be patient and understand that.
Okay. Well, let's take it back a little bit. How did you get started in soccer? Like, what made you fall in love with the game?
Well, first, my dad is an immigrant from Nigeria, so when he came to the U.S. and had me, then I think his passion was is always to be a part of the game. So he was my first coach, and from that moment on, when I started playing at an early age, it was play till I can't play anymore, and then get involved in coaching. So as soon as I got done playing, I got right into made that transition right away, and it's always been a part of my life.
Okay. So, did you start off playing? Like, how was your playing career going for you? Or did you always know, like, I'm probably going to be a coach?
No, I played. So my dad started a club here in Tulsa. Actually, I'm born and raised in Tulsa. He started a club when I was, I don't know, 5, 6 years old. Played for him, and then had a lot of good coaches that kind of inspired me to always push for more. Then I played at the University of Dayton. After that, I was with LA Galaxy. And then I played for Portland Timbers. So, and then career wound down after that, and then it was time to move on. So jumped right away into coaching.
Being born and raised in Tulsa and now coaching the team, that the USL Championship team, how special is that for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything; it has its pros and cons. I'd say uh, the pro is, I mean, I imagine every coach wants to succeed at the highest level possible, but having a kind of emotional attachment to the city to perform probably puts a little extra weight of burden on it. But I mean, I think that's a good thing. I mean, that's one of those things I wanted to succeed. If I was just a fan or just another local coach in the city, I would want this thing to go well. So to actually be at the helm, it's important that I succeed here, and that it works for the city, this community, and obviously African American coaches like myself. All those things play a part in succeeding.
And to mention about that, you are one of the few African American coaches in USL, also kind of like the whole system of soccer here in America. Can you
Mhm.
just tell the listeners like why that is so important and what are some of the challenges you might have faced or overcame?
Yeah, I think just to get the opportunity to get a foot in the door. I mean, opportunity is what anybody wants in life, is to know that I had a fair chance, a fair shake at something. I was fortunate that I was in a place where a head coach gave me an opportunity as an assistant, and when he was let go, the club gave me an opportunity for me to attempt to move the club forward. And it's not everyone. I mean, in that moment, I was searching and thinking, would it ever happen to me that I would get a chance? Just continued to work hard and found my way through it. But I would say, kind of that pressure, that burden from us that are in this ecosystem, we probably feel like we have to succeed for that particular reason. And I know we always feel like that window is small for us. That if it doesn't work, you might not get that opportunity again. because you don't know where the next chance is coming from. Where some coaches get the opportunity to bounce and move around a little bit, it's hard to even get in. So it's like you want to grab it with both hands. So I have a ton of respect for all guys that are, and not just coaches, whether it's players, and we're starting to get some guys in front office positions, and we need those guys to help and um, continue to encourage us to keep going. So I think that's important as well. Is like every once in a while I get a call from whether it's a guy in MLS or something like that, say, hey, keep going. You never know where it can take you. Just to stay inspired, and that's the toughest part for a lot of people is when you don't see that door open. To continue to grind and to try to keep pushing and opening doors.
I think there's something that kind of goes understated. We were talking about like how do we bring more African Americans into the sport? Obviously, you do playing the game, but not everyone can be a player. Some people might want to go in the front office and coaching roles and whatnot. But there seems like there's barriers in place about like how expensive it is to like do the coaching licenses,
Yeah.
or how about like not knowing the right people to get a spot within a front office. Um, just your own personal experience. I'm pretty sure you went through it. What were some of the barriers like you had to go through, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, on the coaching license. I mean, I have my pro license in the U.S. I have my A license in Europe. Like it wasn't something that someone told me to do. It was just one of those things that I just felt like I have to check every box. You know what I mean? And that's that attitude for me is like I don't want to make an excuse and then get an opportunity and someone tell me no for any particular reason. So I spend a lot of time sacrificing and trying to make things happen in order to get every opportunity. And sometimes it's going to another country. I've gone all over the world to study different places, and it's like when I have financially to make it happen, I try to do it. But I would say a big part of my while we may be underrepresented is also the network. Like it's tough to get in, and to brush shoulders with guys that make those decisions, and sometimes we just have to step out of our comfort zone and to try to push and make those things happen and put ourselves in those situations. No one told me to go and study in Benfica or Sporting in Portugal, but I went, I made connections there, and then the world is small. Someone knows someone, then all of a sudden the name bounces around a little bit and it opens more doors. So I know all these things are tough, financially, but it's important that if it's something that you inspire to do, you make those sacrifices as much as possible. And then when you get there, you just have to be open and try to have conversations with people that sometimes don't always look like you.
I know I was going to ask you like what was your favorite place to go study at, but you mentioned that you went to Sporting, you went to Sporting and Benfica to study. So how was that whole experience?
Man, I like the Portuguese culture, one because like it's Europe, but it's that I think they're a little bit economically depressed a little bit. So you see a grind and a work ethic in people, and they have a lot of African people that migrate there. So it's like it's kind of it's an interesting like place because it's diverse in terms of the people. A lot of Brazilians move there as well, so it's like it has a nice little flavor, and the guys are hungry and they produce some of the best coaches in the world already. So it's like that must be an interesting place to study. But it's their work there. They're on the grind consistently there. So it was good to go there. I've gone to England and other places as well, but Portugal has been one of my favorite places to study.
So when you talk about studying, like what kind of things are you studying over there? Are you kind of just going over tactics or learning about like how the game was developed there? I'm thinking
Yeah,
about this as a teacher, so I'm trying to get a
yeah,
better understanding.
yeah. As a teacher, I mean, that's the business of coaching as well. You just want to see. We go to all these coaching courses, and there's one or two things you take from it. It's like no one's quite reinventing the wheel, but when you go to a different environment, sometimes it's completely different. And you just see how you just assess and observe how they're actually doing their business and going about their business, how they, even though I don't speak the language, I just see how they communicate with players and Portugal, they're really emotional and passionate. And when you go to a coaching course in the U.S., they might tell you, "Oh, make a coaching point and sit down." And you see in other parts of the world, guys are standing up and barking orders and showing that enthusiasm and that emotion. So you just try to find, hey, Micheal Nsien like feels like this. I'm pretty calm, but I love to show emotion, and I think players value that too. So you go to certain places, and it kind of confirms like, hey, it's okay to do this. I mean, they do this in other parts of the world, so it's okay. I feel like this already, and I think it's important to ask questions. I see that you did this session like this, or you were talking to, what were you saying to that particular player? And how do you deal with players that are maybe not playing or things like that? Just asking questions and and seeing the response that these guys have. It's always interesting.
When you're doing these trial sessions, do you ever feel like, do you ever have this surreal moment of like, I can't believe that I'm here? Or like, do you kind of just believe in yourself? Like, I'm trying to figure out, I'm asking this.
Mm.
Do you ever feel in yourself sometimes, not like imposter syndrome, but do you ever feel in yourself as just like, I have to be humble, almost like how a lot of African Americans will grow up in a place. If we get to a certain level, we're kind of just like, all right, if I mess up, they're gonna dock me points for it. Did you ever feel like that way when you were over there studying in Europe?
Not so much there, but probably here more than that. Like I mean, there I'm going. I'm of course I'm humble because I'm in someone else's environment. I'm just there to take note. I went to Man City right when Pep Guardiola came in, and you can't really observe the first team sessions there, but the academy. So it's like he had already given them the instruction of how he does his work. I mean, that's humbling to ask the questions and like the level of detail that someone's going through. You're like, man, I need to step my game up. I got to continue to go. Like, and I think that's what successful people probably do is they have this curiosity that someone's doing something more than them or better than them, and they aspire to catch up. And it's like constant. I know I feel like that. I'm always wondering why is Pep or Mourinho like, why are they so great? What am I not doing? Like, and it's like you just try to find those details out, and you find out that they do some things different and a lot of things the same, with just a level of detail. Um, but just personality wise and just being comfortable in your, I say maybe your own skin is the right word. I would say in the US, like I think African American coaches and maybe front office people are always in a constant state of how am I being perceived? You know what I mean? As an African American, which a lot of people maybe don't have to deal with, but um, behavioral wise, like my approach, style of dress, what am I wearing? You know what I mean? Like how am I being perceived by others? That because I want to be true to myself, and at the same time, I want to continue to go forward and go higher and climb higher in this business. So I think not everyone has to deal with that, but it's something that we're always aware of.
Coming back here stateside, why is it so difficult to get a higher up coaching badge? I mean, obviously we know the price, but why are some of those barriers there put in place where we're trying to make the game so accessible?
Man, that's a great question because I've heard ever since I was a player, even that man, we want soccer played in the urban communities and things like that. But meanwhile, you don't have a lot of coaches that look like people from those communities there. And trust me, I know I won't say names. There's certain coaches that I know can't go to the area where I grew up in and run a coaching course or clinic there. You know what I mean? It just wouldn't be taken well. Like if you want the people from those communities to take part, I mean, you should probably invest. My opinion, they should be fast tracking African American coaches because they want people like them to go back to their community to make sure that they're getting players from that community. So how do we there's always this talk of this huge budget or balance in US soccer financially. There's this money there. I mean, they should be finding coaches that they think could help us get to the next level and invest in African American coaches or minority coaches because I think that's a barrier. The entry point is a huge barrier.
Yeah, it is definitely a huge barrier. I tried to go through the whole process, and I got to a certain point where I was just like, I can't afford to pay this.
Yeah, no, and not just that, like, and then you have to, if you have another 9 to 5, you have to take a lot of time off, and then it's a sticky situation there too. But I made a commitment to be a coach early, so it was one of those things that I always try wherever I was working, even in the youth space. It's like, all right, if I'm working for you, then you have to pay for my coaching licenses. That was just kind of something I always would put in any contract or anything that I signed with anyone, that you have to help me further my education. So however it ends, however that situation ends, I know there was something that came out of it positive, hopefully for everyone, but definitely I'm going to get an education at every moment.
I just check a quick transition from your coaching career. I want to ask you, like, your playing career. You mentioned you played at LA Galaxy, Portland Timbers, and whatnot. What were some of your best memories? What were some of your like best teammates you played with and stuff like that?
Yeah, LA, we were fortunate to win a championship in 2005. I wasn't a big player or key player in any of that. I was on the reserves at that time when they had that reserve league then. But I would say guys like Kobe Jones that was there. Someone you look up to when you're a kid, and the guy was there with so much experience and still giving back not just to the team, to some of the young the young players. I think that's always important to mentor. So obviously, talented players like Landon and those guys were there, but I would say senior players like Kobe Jones, and those were important people that they inspire you, and at the same time, they mentor you and things like that, which is really important. And then in Portland, that was I was more playing a lot more there. So I mean, that was just an opportunity to be in the field with a great fan base that Portland has. Just to be in their community as one of their players. It's like, I mean, they hold you in really high regard, and there's expectation, and it's like this they give this feeling that every game you want to play, you want to perform for them. So I would say memory wise, like some of the crowds that we're able to play in front of there.
Where I imagine seeing those crowds from Portland and LA, they have to be pretty intense and pretty hype.
Yeah, beautiful, man. Like Portland, for example, you go to they have their like little local bars from the supporters. Man, like and you go there sometimes after a game, and there's guys with the Timber tattoo logos on their neck, and I mean, it's like these people are diehards, man. So you just know they're invested. They're invested into that brand.
So another lighthearted question, because I kind of been asking people about this since I interviewed Jimmy Obleda for Walking 90. What's your pregame meal like? His was pretty interesting. He eats tuna and peanut butter before every game. What's your pregame meal like?
Big fan of tuna also. So yeah, little tuna provolone sandwich like that. That was big. And then I'm not one of those people that could eat heavy before a game. It was like my stomach always felt tight before playing. But if I could get a sandwich in and some fruit or something like that, that was about as good. And then try to get some type of bar and some protein bar. Back then, everyone's eating like the Cliff bars and stuff. Now
Yeah.
there's a variety now, but that was like the best stuff we had back then.
Those Cliff Bars were like a big seller back in the
Yeah,
day.
back then, it was like they've changed it up. There's a little different flavors nowadays, but that was it.
Right. So transition back to your coaching. Last year, had the pandemic, all that stuff. But we also had the uprising of Black Lives Matter. Um, as an African American coach, how did you navigate those conversations that were held in the locker room and trying to I mean, almost every African American working in sports had to go through this as well of educating those around us that were just now having their eyes awakened to stuff that we've seen going on for years.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the last 2 years have been heavy, and just in terms of like all the deaths, the tragedies that have happened, one including the pandemic, and then for us in Tulsa, 2021, we had the centennial of the race massacre during all that, the 1921 race massacre that happened in Tulsa, which my players, when they first came last year, I made them go on the tour and get to understand what that's about and the history of the city. I think the best thing for me as an African American coach, I think the players are one comfortable coming to me, and I not afraid that I would misstep anything that I said or any of my actions because I'm kind of convicted by what I believe. So when things come up, or should we take a knee, or this in the anthem, I can give straight feedback because that's how I feel. However I feel, I was pretty honest with the ownership and the players about these things. I think it's important that one, we have a voice, but at the same time, as on the team concept, we want it to be collective. Anything we decided we would do, it would be a step back to be divided on one of these things, one of these topics. So I think it was an opportunity for players of different backgrounds to sit down and talk about these things and come to a conclusion that they all agree with, and to be public about that. And for our team last year, I would say it was successful because guys were really open with the feelings that there's some things that are bigger than the sport, and then there's some opportunities, a platform you get by being in the sport that you use to kind of to show how you're feeling about certain situations, which is extremely important.
Yeah, also one of the things that I mean really caught my attention was how the club kind of honored the race master that you were talking about with the Greenwood patch. Can you just speak about like what went into to the design of that patch and what went into the club doing that as well?
Well, I mean, I gave my opinion to the club, and they were very supportive, and there were people in the club that were proactive. But our stadium sits on Greenwood, so to play a match every other weekend, knowing what occurred there 100 years ago, like that was ground level of where the city basically bombed successful black enterprises. You know what I mean? Like tons of businesses that were there. So to have the right to even play a sport on that ground, I think you have to be realistic, and you have to show some support there. And our club was really open to that. So right in that district, there's a great movement going on right now there. I mean, a lot of people consider that the mecca, as is Black Wall Street. You know what I mean? So it's the mecca of black enterprise. So there's an element of pride that goes in that community as well. So I think our club realized that, and there was a great opportunity to show support. And I think they did a great Greenwood Ave did a great job of putting the patch, and the club did a great job of promoting it.
How do you think the black community is receptive to seeing the club do those kind of gestures, doing the patch and having the players go toward the city? How do you think the black community is grasping onto it?
Yeah, literally in North Tulsa, where I grew up, which is the African American community. It's the club also did a league called the Dream League, and I will tell you, when growing up, I was I was the only soccer player that was there. You know what I mean? And most I played other sports, but most people knew me that this dude's different. He's a good athlete, but he chose this sport. So it was like there's a level of respect there, but they put together this league that the first weekend I showed up, and there were 300 to 400 African American Hispanic kids playing soccer, and I was taken aback, to be honest, and it was beautiful. And it was like they had music playing in the background. It was like a party atmosphere, and the kids had fun, and just being themselves, enjoying a competitive sport. But I had never witnessed that in my own eyes in the United States, and definitely not in Tulsa. Um, that interaction. So, I mean, that was I think, a great moment for the club, and hopefully we'll continue to support that and continue to grow it.
Wow. Well, coach, we wish you the best of luck with all of that stuff. Before we get out of here, I want to ask you this: for any people of color that are looking to get into the sport, get into the trade of coaching, that might have been deterred recently, or just might have run into some bad luck, what advice would you give them to keep them motivated?
I would say, ultimately, it's not easy to say just stay positive because, it gets difficult at times when you don't see a way out. But I would say for our people that, I mean, we're not used to difficult times. You know what I mean? We've had a lot of adversity, so it's not something that we're not accustomed to. So expect the expected. It's not easy. So a lot of that, a lot of what you have to do, you do it on your own 2 feet. And sometimes you're fortunate enough that someone will reach out and encourage you. So if I can ever be one of those people, I'll always try to take the time when people reach out to me to be supportive. And there's other people before me that have done that. Guys like Tyrone Marshall too, that was in LA, that's at Cincinnati now. And I've always followed Ezra, that's in Chicago, and Robin, that's at Colorado. Like, I don't always have conversations with them, but they're leading the way. And then, I'm looking at that as like a beacon or an ounce of hope that, if I continue to work hard, there's an opportunity. And I might have to work harder than other people, and that's okay too. So just to be inspired and continue to put your head down and work as hard as you can, that we're seeing some doors opening, like MLS, for example, put together the diversity movement that clubs are starting to have to interview um, minorities, and we know what that will look like. I mean, you have evidence in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Guys like me might be doing a lot of interviews and still might not get a job, right away. But it's about networking, taking advantage of that opportunity. And I can't get 20 interviews and be frustrated. I have to be thankful for that practice and maybe interview 21. Things might go my way, and everyone needs to consider that. It's like, yeah, it can be defeating at times, but just to stay hungry and just to continue to try to move forward. That's the options, and continue to try to build that network. I mean, there's a lot of us that are working now, and we need to do better by staying in contact with each other and trying to lift each other as well.
There's one last question I wanted to ask you that kind of just popped in my head about the Black Players for Change initiative and the USL Black Players Association. Seeing those two organizations come about, and also the Black Players for Women, I believe it's called. I can't remember the exact name, but seeing those three organizations kind of get formed over the last 2 years, how does that make you feel, and what is their importance within the ecosystem of soccer here in America?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a generation of people that, and it's not just going to be coaches. There's some of these guys that they have their eyes on executive positions and things like that, and it's like it's momentum, and that's important. So when you get enough guys that have been in this ecosystem as players, and they get experience, and they want to do something with that experience, and it's not just coaching. And they'll make they'll have their own network. This is what they're doing right now. And if these guys become executives, maybe they put their hand out and bring someone else through the door, and that'll happen over and over again. And before you know it, there's a lot more diversity, not in these front offices and on the technical side, because there's just a network of trust that this person has played the game. He has a good work rate. He aspires just like you do. He's hungry to have success like you do, and there's a level of intelligence that that this person has, and that's the main thing, is just continue to build some momentum and to grow that network.
Well, Coach, I just want to say thank you for all of that, because that's an amazing part to end on the show on. First of all, I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day. I know we talked about it before. You had the busy 2 days for coming on our show and dropping some wisdom and some gems on us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you, having a platform and asking these questions and getting the word out about, the reality of sport. And there's a long way to go, but there are some positives, and we continue to build, and we stay hungry and keep working. But no, I appreciate you as well.
Thank you, Coach. That makes me feel better about myself today. Where can everyone reach out to you, and if they have any questions, where can they get in contact with you at?
Yeah, my email is mncn at fctulsa.com. And then I'm also on Instagram at Micheal N6. You can reach me on that. And I have Facebook as well, my full name. Me and my dad share a name, so make sure it's a different one. But he could probably point you in my direction anyways. But, I try to do the best I can. Like, we're all busy. But a big part of why I do what I do is to try to pave the way for someone else. So I'll always try to spend that time when I can.
Right, right, right. Well, as always, listeners, we want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day for listening to our show, because without you, it wouldn't be us. So as always, be safe and be easy. We will check you guys out.